Hello, everybody, and welcome to F1 Unhinged. I am your co host, Josh,
And I'm Tyler.
and testing has me absolutely fucking confused on everything going on. Who's good, who's bad. Feel like we need to sort a lot out.
Yeah, I've had a few people ask me if I'm excited for Australia, and I am. This is the start of F1 season. Why wouldn't I be excited? But I feel that excitement is a lot less than concern, and obviously we've touched on this in the last two episodes. But I really don't know what to expect at all, and that makes me feel uncomfortable.
At some point, it's going to be a disaster.
Yes,
The question is for who and
and
what.
when.
Is it going to be an F1 disaster? Is it going to be a specific team disaster?
Or is it
You,
going to be multiple teams because of an engine manufacturer?
Yeah, is it going to be a structural disaster? Are there going to be procedural issues? There is so much changing and so much unknown that something's going to go wrong. The question is
Absolutely.
just what and and who is able to navigate that.
Yeah, I fully agree with that.
And it's a unique track to start the year off with because we know that energy concerns are a big deal, and this is a track that just gobbles up energy. So if there's a problem, it's going to be apparent in practice one.
And we've already seen some problems just because even at Bahrain, teams are running out of energy before the straight even ends.
Well, and a lot of what we don't know is going to be a how this affects qualifying strategy. It because outlaps are going to be really weird, and we don't know who's going to get those right, who's going to get those wrong. We could have a top team knocked out in Q1 because they get the operation wrong. Because it seems like there's such a huge difference in these cars versus everything going right and everything going wrong on energy, where it's not as simple as, oh, something goes wrong, recharge, do another lap. It's not that easy in these cars. So if you have an issue, if you run into traffic, if you have a track limit issue, normally that's not as big of a deal unless it's at the very end of a session. This, if your first run gets compromised, it could screw up your whole session because we don't really know how things are going to flow and how things are going to work. And operationally, who's got it right. So aside from the race itself, qualifying is going to be really, really interesting to see if the fast teams actually progress in qualifying or if there's shocks in qualifying because of operational things and energy store things.
Yeah. And then, like, I feel like unless they make a major change to the starting procedure, the qualifying grid is going to be how everybody finishes the race.
See, I disagree.
Well, not entirely, because if a team can't get off the line, then that shakes up the grid a bit. But
Well,
like,
it already seems like there's a major difference in teams in how. So, and this is just a theory. Keep in mind, this is just my theory looking through data. I have no facts other than my interpretations of data. But teams deal with first gear very differently. And the way that their turbo works very differently. I think Ferrari engines definitely built in have an advantage off the line. 100%. I think Red Bull might struggle off the line because of how they do their first gear for energy saving. Ferrari sacrifices some energy save to be good off the line. Red Bull is right now sacrificing some launch to be able to recharge better and to be able to use first gear when most teams aren't able to. They run a really long first gear that allows them to shift down to first gear and recharge in a way other teams can't safely. But that could hurt them off the start. But then how does that affect energy later in the race? Like there's a lot of
How does that affect the entire race?
yeah,
Because we still don't really know race pace. We still don't really know how like drafting works. You know, hot, like clean air versus dirty air. Like,
and we also don't really know how racing is going to work.
Yeah.
There's a lot of unknowns in the wheel to wheel battle. And an overtake could cost you 3 positions to somebody behind you, depending on how much energy you have to use to get an overtake and how much you have to use to defend that overtake. It's.
Let's not forget that Charles Leclerc came out last week or the week before and said how difficult it is to overtake. So is overtaking even a possibility in these cars at this very moment?
Well, but I think that goes twofold because it's very rare that anyone's going to be on the same energy, because not only are you going to have different energy usage needs during your lap, but every engine and every team is running different software on how they handle their energy issues. A Red Bull isn't going to run out of energy at the same point as a Ferrari, neither is a Mercedes. Each team's going to have there's a give and take somewhere. Each team has a deficit where another team doesn't. Everyone is positioning where they think is best. I think it's become apparent Red Bull care a lot more about the race with the way that their deployment has been working and the way that they seem to have their positions built up over keep as much energy possible during the race. Is that going to hurt them really bad in qualifying? And then how much of a difference is that actually going to make in the race? If you qualify in 8th, but you have really good energy, are you going to win that race, or does it not matter that much? I think your mic's muted.
Yeah, it was.
Good
Sorry,
job.
the dogs were barking, so I didn't want it to come through. No, I think each of the top teams are going to have a different qualifying and energy expenditure versus race expenditure, and so it could even differ from qualifying to race.
Oh, it's definitely going to.
Yeah, and I don't think we'll actually fully understand who's like. I'm not willing to come out right now and say at the end of the end of the Aussie Grand Prix that I'll have who is a front runner and who is not. I think it's going to take a handful of races for us to actually understand who actually is got it nailed and who doesn't, and who has a good idea of how to run strategy when it comes to energy. But then there's also the gas mix aspect of it too, because like any of the Mercedes engine teams, so that's Mercedes, that's McLaren, Alpine, and Williams, might have to go into the Aussie GP with a temporary fuel.
That's not completely true.
Last I saw yesterday, that was still the case.
Not all Mercedes engine teams run the same fuel supplier.
Okay. Well, okay. So then, who runs the Mercedes engine fuel supplier besides
Petronas.
Mercedes? Well, no, but yeah, but which teams?
That's their. So Petronas is Mercedes fuel supplier.
Okay, so just because McLaren's running Mercedes engines doesn't mean they have to use Petronas.
No. In fact, they don't. I believe Mercedes is the only team using Petronas.
I mean, it is a massive sponsor for Mercedes, so that makes sense.
Yeah. Each team has oil companies that they've partnered with for, and now some teams do use the same one. Some, like for instance, Red Bull use their own completely. They are an Exxon team.
Which is crazy because in the 20, I mean, I'm wearing the 2024 jersey and it's got mobile on it. Did they switch team? Did they switch energy, like gas teams?
Isn't Mobile One part of Exxon?
That's great. I mean, I don't follow the gas industry for many moral reasons, so I don't know. Actually, that's a great question. I thought Exxon Mobil. Well, I guess Exxon Mobil. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. They are part of. They are the brand name of Exxon. Mobile One is the brand name of Exxon Mobil.
Which is wild because Exxon is also a brand name in itself. So okay, so even if that's not true, so Mercedes could start off on the back foot because Petronas can't get their fuel to homologate. Right.
I am wrong. I got two of my teams mixed up. Petronas is running the customer teams now.
So, see, I was right. Let's go.
You were right. I got my BP team mixed up. I thought Williams were running BP. It's Audi who's running BP.
Can you just tell me I was right one more time?
Yes, you were right.
Thank you.
So Shell is running Ferrari, Haas, and Cadillac, which they've been approved. ExxonMobil for Racing Bulls and Red Bull Racing has been approved. BP Castrol for Audi has been approved. Petronas for all the Mercedes teams has not been approved, and neither is Aramco.
So Aston, oof. But Petronas can't get their fuel to homologate right. I think I said that correctly. So I'm not sure what that means scientifically. Again, I don't follow the gas industry, but it's interesting that Aramco isn't approved yet because not only are they an Aston Martin sponsor, actually like a title sponsor for Aston Martin, they are also a Formula One as an entity sponsor.
But there are very specific things that they have to complete.
Which you would think that the Formula One as an entity sponsor would be able to do more easily because they have Formula One.
But this is also technology. You are required to be completely carbon neutral, and you have to have a biosource for your fuel. So it has to be a non-food biosource fuel, and it has to be 100% carbon neutral.
Yes.
And if you're not able to guarantee those things, then you basically have to run a fuel that's purposely at a deficit.
Yeah.
Which Mercedes is very much claiming this is a non-issue, and it probably isn't.
Probably is a non-issue or isn't a non-issue?
It probably is a non-issue.
Okay.
They'll probably be approved by race time.
I would hope so.
But it is a stressor.
Do we know if they were running Petronas fuel during this last week of testing?
So for testing, you had to be running your sustainable fuel.
So it was, even if it wasn't approved, running.
That's where the weird gray area is that nobody really asked the question, so we never got complete clarification on, is were they running the fuel that hasn't been approved, or were they running a step down version? If they were running a step down version, Jesus Christ, McLaren or the Mercedes cars are going to be in the top 6.
Same with McLaren, though.
No, I mean like all the Mercedes powered cars will be the top 6.
Yeah,
if this is them running on a neutered fuel, oh God, we're fucked for a season. Which we might be anyway, but we'll see. Aston, we don't really have that worry with.
Well, Aston's got. Maybe we can do it out of order. But since you brought up Aston,
oh my God,
they are shitting the bed. Holy fuck, they're shitting the bed.
They are shitting the bed in ways that I didn't know you could shit the bed. There's now rumors coming out that Fernando's might be done after this year.
Yeah,
That
he's gonna retire.
he's pretty fed up. Lance Stroll, I've never heard Lance Stroll be this done. Lance Stroll sounds like someone who has lost the last bit of hope he had. And honestly, I expected that to be Alonso, not him. But I think Lance finally thought that he was finally going to be in a team with a good car again. Because let's not forget, the year Williams had Stroll and that car wasn't a complete paperweight, he had some good performances. And I don't think he's ever again been in a competitive car. Because even by the time he got into Racing Point, they were on their way down after years of financial fuckery.
Yeah.
So I think Lance was like, finally, top car. I get to show that I am a good driver. And it's the worst car that, possibly a car that's worse than the Williams that he drove that led to his dad buying Racing Point. It's so bad. And it's everything. Like, we can blame Honda a lot, and Honda is a big part of the problem. Honda delivered a dog shit imitation of an engine. It is horrible. That engine, it'd be laughable if so much money wasn't wasted on making something so bad.
I still think it's laughable.
I think Honda forgot that they lost their best talent to Red Bull when they pulled out of F1. I think somewhere that got lost in the picture that when Honda pulled out of F1, Red Bull Powertrains hired a lot of people involved in making that Honda engine good to then build a new program. And it's showing because whoever's running the show doesn't know what they're doing. It is apparent that they came into this the way everyone expected Cadillac, Audi, and the new Red Bull engine to be. I think this is what people expected for a new engine turning up on the grid. And Red Bull came out and has aced everything with their power unit. They did an amazing job, even if they're not the top team right now. The fact that they're still in the top 4 with a brand new engine is amazing. Yeah. Audi, brand new engine. They've had their teething, but they're not at the back of the pack. Cadillac, brand new operation. Yes, they're getting an engine from someone else, but a brand new team, brand new operation. They've had their issues, but they're still ahead of Aston. They're still completing laps. Aston ran out of parts because they lost so many batteries. They couldn't run the last day of testing more than a couple in laps and out laps because they didn't have enough batteries. They were on their last battery and they knew it would ruin if they ran at pace at any point.
I have a question for you. Do you think Aston is in this position because not because they hired Adrian Newey, because initially Adrian wasn't team principal, but since making Newey team principal, do you think that's part of why they're in this position? Because he builds cars.
No, they're in this position because they hired Honda.
I think they would be. I don't know if they would be any better without Honda.
Outside of the gearbox, I don't think the car is bad.
Well, who were they running last year?
Mercedes.
Okay.
But they wanted to be They didn't want to be a customer anymore. They wanted their own future in their hands as, running as a constructor, basically. But the problem is they picked the worst partner.
I mean, Newey built a good car with Honda.
Yeah, and the people he built that with work for Red Bull now.
Well, they have worked for Red Bull. So,
But they weren't originally. They were Honda employees who now work for Red Bull. Going to Red Bull powertrains. There's a lot of Japanese people working in Red Bull powertrains because they came over from the Honda project. You have to think Honda, just because Honda was still running engines up until the end of this regulation doesn't mean their program was still active. Red Bull had taken over that program and took on a bunch of the staff that Honda was going to cut. Half of that staff went to Red Bull powertrains, and half of that staff went to maintain the current power units and slowly work in that. So Honda lost a lot of employees who were behind this success, got started late on the regulations, and didn't have the best people in their own program working at it anymore because they were part of the Red Bull powertrains because they didn't know Honda was coming back. So when they were getting let go by Honda, they went to the open door of Red Bull. They didn't know Honda was going to change their mind a couple years in and come back. So a lot of the Honda employees stayed with Red Bull. So Honda tried to rebuild this program like they had done in the beginning, but they forgot the step of the people responsible for it weren't in charge anymore. And expecting the same result with an entirely different leadership group is a folly. And it has become apparent, even more of one than they realize. And I have a feeling this is going to be as bad as the McLaren era, the McLaren Honda. Because the problems look similar. They can't get the casing right. They can't get the weight right. They can't get the reliability right. There's constant problems with the gearbox integration. This is McLaren Honda all over again, even to Fernando Alonso standing on the side of the track looking like he's seeing ghosts.
Can we talk about how bad that looked for them when they had to have the part of the team come out and it took them a good 20 minutes to get that car off the track?
It's a disaster for them. Yeah. Plain and simple, this is a disaster for Aston. Aston has put an insane amount of money into this program. And they're losing money.
Oh, yeah.
The company Aston is losing money. They're selling naming rights to the F1 team because they're losing so much money.
They also sold a decent percentage of their ownership of the F1 team last year.
Yeah. But that was to
Stroll.
Yeah. But now they're having to sell naming rights because they're losing so much money because the car brand itself isn't doing that well. And now the Formula One team, this is the problem with super rich owners sometimes, is they come in and they think money fixes everything. Hire the best staff, build the best toys, you'll be the best team. But if those people don't get along and the processes don't work, or you make partnerships with people who aren't ready to be at that level, it all crashes down quickly. Now they have a motor oil that doesn't seem to be on top. They have an engine that's definitely at the back. They have a car that we can't even tell if it's good because it doesn't stay running long enough to get a real metric on if it's a decent car or not. And when it does run, they're having to run it on way down power so it doesn't fry the gearbox. They haven't run a race distance
Could we see Ashton leave Formula One as we know it in a few years? Because I think I could. It seems like Aston Martin as a brand outside of Formula One is really distancing themselves from the team,
Well,
which
the
doesn't
problem
help
is,
them because
well,
their
the
team is
problem
named
too
Aston Martin
is
Formula One.
the Aston brand itself outside of Formula One is also struggling.
Yes, yes, it is.
So you have the racing brand struggling and the actual car brand struggling.
Well, it doesn't help that they only make boutique vehicles. Like, it's not like you can just go buy a Vantage.
And it's been a long time since anyone's really cared that Aston is what James Bond drives.
Yeah, no one gives a fuck.
Yeah. It's really, Astons have basically become Teslas for old people at this point, where you just kind of get laughed at a little bit.
Because I'm interested in watches, the only thing that people care about when it comes to James Bond, it seems, is what watch he's wearing, which is in the last decade been Omega. So they don't care that he drives an Aston Martin, especially since most common people can't afford an Aston Martin to begin with. So, and that's not a stab. That's just being completely honest.
Yeah. Well, and the people who can usually don't drive Astons.
That is also true. They drive P1s
or Ferraris or
Lamborghinis.
Yeah. Nobody's
or Paganis.
Well, because Aston is a performance car dressed like your grandma's wagon. Like, it doesn't look sporty. And that's part of the problem is a lot of sports cars look like sports cars, and an Aston looks like something where you drive your grandparents in the back.
Unless you buy like a Vantage or something like that, but
even
those are
the
millions
Vantages,
of dollars.
Like even seeing like the Aston GT3s, they don't look fast. They look like slow cars.
They look like Chryslers.
There's just something about the design that it's like, I won't finish first today. I don't know what it is about those damn cars. They just look slow.
Would you say Aston Martins are the rich people's version of a Chrysler?
Probably. It also exactly doesn't help that I saw one of the cars. I wish I could remember which one. When I was in Daytona, I saw one of the cars, and the way that they had the tape, it made it look like two eyes and a big open mouth smile, and I have never unseen that to where it looks like it should be a car on Thomas the Train or something. And my brain can't unsee that now that I've seen it to where it looks like somebody's cartoon car. And I just can't get over it. And immediately I'm just like, oh, that's the slow cartoon car. And like, they could win the race and it just looks slow to me. So, but away from rants on Aston's road cars, other performance car brands.
Who's sandbagging?
I'm going to tell you who I don't think is. And
I'm curious.
This is going to be a surprise. A team that I don't know if they're going to win.
Am I wearing it part of their team kit currently?
No.
Oh, okay.
I have a very strong lingering feeling that Ferrari might be powerful.
I mean, they're good off the grid line.
Well, and here's my theory of why. Because of how good Haas looks. And I know that's kind of a weird place to go, but sometimes when you're trying to judge a top team, look at their customers. If I'm trying to judge how Mercedes looks, I'll look at some of the customers. Ferrari looks really good in testing. Whatever balance issues they were having, it looks like they're getting better at figuring those out. The engine is definitely good. They're really good off the line. The engine is solid, if nothing else. I don't know if it's the top engine, but it's not bad. They obviously have a boost off the start, which smart for them, figuring out that was going to be a part of the regulations, and that That's something they should address. Very smart. It'll take a while for other teams to adjust to that. Genius by them. Their fucking rotisserie wing that, whether it's used or not,
It's
you know,
sick.
I shit on
It's such a
Ferrari
sick
a lot.
implementation.
Let's be real. I have shit on Ferrari a lot. Ferrari is my most impressive team of testing. They popped up. The engine's good. They have the most innovative design of testing. And they also have probably the most important innovation, which is their start procedure. I don't know if that wing trick is going to be something they actually use. Supposedly, it produces like 10 or 8 more horsepower because of the drag that it reduces. Whatever. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Whatever. They could just be a red herring of something that they never use again. If they use it, fucking genius. Love the idea. Love the innovation. Love the thinking outside of the Ferrari box. And you have two really, really good drivers. I don't know that any of those two right now are the best guy on the grid, but I still think they're the best combination on the grid.
Yeah.
Leclerc has pace and has always had pace and has the ability to win races. He's a great qualifier. And Lewis is fucking Lewis Hamilton. Like, just because he's had a couple bad years doesn't mean he stops being Lewis. And we wondered if it was just the regulations that gave him such a hard time. This is the chance to see. And so far, he's looked very solid. Not quite on Leclerc's level, but solid. And look, we don't really know who's sandbagging him. We'll get into that. But I have a sneaky good feeling about Ferrari. Not saying they're going to win the championship. It's still Ferrari, and I'm sure they'll fuck up all their upgrades. But at least at the start, which oddly this feels just like the last regulations, where at the start, Ferrari were at the top and looked like they were going to do something and then faded the whole rest of the regulation cycle. This is another one where at least at the start, they are the team I am the most impressed with what they did in testing.
I feel afraid to say the same thing. They look good now. Again, we haven't seen race at all, qualifying at all. They do look like they have some of their shit together, at least to a point where they look good. I do really like the back flipping wing. I think that is super innovative. I hate that they only ran it for one session out of the day. But I'm curious to see. I'm curious if they bring it back because Gesundheit. I'm curious if they bring it back because that was pretty cool. I'm also really curious to see the numbers on it, which we will not see at all.
Well, my guess is they didn't want to. They had something specific they wanted to see on it, and they didn't want to test it beyond that.
Well, I'm sure they didn't want it to be. The more you run it, the more visible how it works becomes to other teams. They pay people just to look at things.
Yeah.
Lifetime salaries that exceed far beyond anything I'll ever make just to look at something for hours and hours and hours. And so I'm curious to see if we'll see that come Australia or even as an upgrade package sometime in the middle of the season. I think on the topic of sandbagging, I think McLaren is sandbagging.
I think the entire Mercedes engine program might be. That's my fear, at least.
Well, I mean, it kind of goes with the whole, at temperature expansion thing that we talked about. I think is last week or the week before that Mercedes has. All of the Mercedes engine teams have that.
And they all passed the test.
Yeah. And so if the regulation changes, the way they measure it changes, that could be bad. But I think the whole Mercedes engine team thing is definitely sandbagging, but I think McLaren is sandbagging even more than just what Mercedes might say. Hey, you need to tone this down or do this or that.
Now, is
Like,
that just you hoping that they're sandbagging so they're higher up the order, or you
no,
legitimately thinking they're sandbagging?
I'm legitimately thinking they're sandbagging.
I'm less sure. I'm sure all the Mercedes engine teams are sandbagging.
But they all have the freedom to sandbag beyond what Mercedes says.
Yeah, but I think they're all purposely running really low engine modes.
Yeah.
To not show that power.
Could we see Williams in top 5 this season more than once? Do you think?
I mean, they got podiums last year, so it's possible. And I'm not excluding anyone but Aston from a chance at a top 5 this year. As crazy as that sounds to say, we really have no idea what the hell is going to happen. So I'm not really excluding anyone from that possibility. Who knows? Cadillac could halfway through the year develop into a steady top 10 team that occasionally punches above that.
I'm not going to comment on that until we get to that part.
Like, do I think that's a likely thing? Probably not, but I'm also not going to discount anyone having that chance. Williams could be great. Now, we know Williams is on the back foot. I think they bit off more than they could chew.
Do you really think they're on their back foot, though? Or
Yeah,
do you think it was a PR stunt?
I think they didn't realize how much into the deep end this was. I think they had thought that they had fixed a lot of their processes, and this exposed things they didn't realize needed fixed. That is my opinion, is that I think they thought they did more and that they were further along in that process, but I think they were just so far behind that what felt like they were further in the process became a really painful realization when everyone else started working on this stuff too and were proceeding a lot quicker than they were.
That makes sense.
Because I mean, you can fix a lot of structural issues, but Aston's a great example. Even if you have all the money in the world to throw at it, that doesn't mean it just works. And Williams do not have all the money in the world to throw at it. So it would have been shocking to me if they wouldn't have ran into roadblocks like this. Every team's going to. It's just a matter of when and how you navigate those. And I trust James Vowles to navigate those decently. I don't think they're going to take a huge step back this year. But it's also a really competitive midfield now.
When do we think James Vowles leaves Williams to take over Toto's position?
I think that depends, A, on Toto, and B, on us being right about Williams. Because if Williams completely shits the bed this year, some of that's going to be on James's head. Because the problem of making a lot of comments about, oh, we're putting everything in this, we're putting everything in this, that's fine. But when you come up short when everyone knows you were putting all your eggs in this basket, you're kind of the one left holding the basket then. And that could be a situation that James finds himself in.
I have another question. And this makes me a very proud son because my father asked this question and he's very new to Formula One. And he only knows a couple names, and the couple is Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen and Lando Norris. He asked me yesterday because he always asks me questions about F1. And that's the thing that I watch the most. That's where I'm most knowledgeable, so on and so forth. He asked, if Ferrari does bad this season, why wouldn't Lewis go back to Mercedes? He is hellbent on Lewis leaving Ferrari to go back to Mercedes.
That'll
and so
never happen.
my question to you was going to be, do you think that would ever happen? And my answer is the exact same as yours. And he couldn't grasp it.
There's a negative 200% chance that happens.
Yeah, I said the same thing.
Lewis would be in a Red Bull before he ended up in a Mercedes.
Yeah. And he asked why, and I gave him reasons. I mean, I shit on George Russell a lot, but he is a good driver. He is a good driver. I just don't like him.
Well, but I also think that doesn't matter.
Well, but let me finish. Because I told him, I was like, there's only 2 seats per team. And I was like, Toto went all in on Kimi Antonelli. Like, put his whole ball sack out for Kimi. The only person that could ever take a seat at Mercedes at this moment is Max Verstappen. If he's decided to stay beyond his contract in 2028. And my dad can't grasp the fact that Lewis would never go back to Mercedes. And he's like, if you're that skilled and like you've been racing, it's in your blood, where else would he go? And that's a valid question. Like, if Lewis left Formula One, would he continue racing?
No.
Would he? I said the same thing. I was like, he's going to retire. He's good. He is set. He's got a Ferrari ambassadorship. He's good.
Well, Lewis is kind of weird in the fact that Lewis has never really had much of an interest in driving anything else. Lewis isn't one of those guys who wants to win Le Mans, wants to do any of that. Lewis's other interests have always been outside of racing.
Yeah.
His
interests have been helping
people
get into racing.
Also, but a lot of them have been, a lot of his interests are outside of racing. He's very big into fashion. He's actually, in ways that I didn't expect till I heard it myself, he's actually a really good singer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He really big into music and things like that.
Same with Charles Leclerc, though. Charles Leclerc has an album out on Spotify.
But I think Lewis takes that stuff a little more seriously, and that's where he would go after racing. And now he's already co-produced the movie. They just announced they're doing a sequel to that. That's where Lewis is there. That's where Lewis is going when he retires. Lewis will be in Hollywood. He'll be in the music industry. He'll be involved in those areas. He's
about the sequel.
He is not a Max or someone like that or Fernando when it's like, all right, I'm done with this racing series. Let me go do this racing series, and I want to do this. That's not Lewis.
Yeah,
Lewis is here probably 2 more years
at most,
and a lot of that depends on how good Ferrari is.
That's why I said at most.
I think regardless, Lewis's last team is Ferrari.
He signed a contract with Ferrari, and one of the staples in it was that he would have an ambassadorship afterwards.
Which is part of why he left Mercedes. It's because Mercedes wouldn't give him that.
Yeah, and that's why I'm fully, wholeheartedly, once Lewis leaves F1, he is leaving with Ferrari.
Yeah.
There is no going back.
Financially, it makes too much sense for him. Business-wise, it makes too much sense for him. The initiatives he is involved in, it makes too much sense for him. Yeah, that's... Yeah. I just don't see Lewis driving with anyone else.
let alone
And
Mercedes.
Mercedes is going to be too much focused on the future. They have some young guys. If they do end up losing Russell in a couple years, they have other guys in the pipeline.
That actually poses a interesting question. Let's say George leaves Mercedes in a few years. Where does he go?
That'll depend on a lot of where F1 is at that point.
I just want like a off the cuff random guess. Like who do you think he ends up with?
That's impossible to answer without knowing where the grid is.
That's fair. That's fair.
Because say Williams becomes a top team. He has a huge relationship there and loves James Vowles. I think he would go there in a heartbeat if they were a competitive team.
And if James is still there.
Even without James there, he has such a connection with Williams. You know, he's the one who broke their pointless streak. It's.
But I have a hard time thinking he would do that if Williams isn't actually contending.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If Williams was contending, if Max leaves Red Bull and Red Bull's contending, that could be a spot. Because the people who didn't like George aren't in charge there anymore. Though I don't know how much they would want to pair him with Arvid, because I imagine that's their heir apparent. But 2 British drivers, if that happens, there could be some interest in that. It could be McLaren if Oscar gets unhappy and leaves. It could be Audi if Audi has some success and Nico retires and they have that seat open.
I don't want that to happen because I don't want to turn against a team that I've been waiting for to come into Formula One for 2 years now to hire George Russell, because then I cannot be a fan then.
But that part of my point is it's impossible to know where he would go until we know more of the pecking order. It may be smarter to stay at Mercedes, even though Kimi is the favored.
I don't think Kimi's the favored one.
He's the favored one by Toto. Don't get that twisted.
Yeah, but George still pulls out.
There's a reason his contract was much easier to sort than Kimi's. I'm just...
That's fair.
I mean, Toto got rid of Lewis for Kimi.
That fair.
Says a lot.
That's fair.
that says a lot. Kimi has to succeed, honestly. Like, you pushed out the greatest driver your team has ever had to bring this kid in. He better be your best driver.
That's fair.
And I do think Mercedes is probably the team to beat. In theory. But man, that Ferrari looked really good.
And Lewis deserves a Ferrari that looks good. His last year sucked.
Yeah. The question is how Lewis is going to do with the energy management stuff, because I think this is going to involve Lewis to do the thing that he hates doing most, getting in the sim. Lewis has always been a driver who doesn't like being in the sim. That's never been his thing. And to get the energy restore stuff right, I think he's going to have to spend a lot of time in the sim. Because there's a lot to learn.
Yeah.
And that is the one thing that worried me about Lewis. There's a little thing from one of his interviews that I just didn't like. And it might be a big nothing burger, but it was a little bit of an alarm to me when he was talking about the first day of testing, when he was talking about how complicated everything was to learn and how, you needed a degree to learn. And he was talking about the first day that he came in after break and had to learn a bunch of it. And it was like, you're just now learning this?
Just
Coming
now?
back from winter break? They sat you down and taught you this stuff like you hadn't been doing it in the sim all year?
No, he'd been doing Kim K.
Like
So
that, that
I couldn't pass that opportunity up.
but like that's weird to me. Like, and maybe it's one of those weird misspeaks that you get sometimes in press things, but it did worry me if he was waiting that late to like figure out how the energy restores were going to work and things. It's like, dude, I feel like you should have known that before the winter break. I mean, couldn't have changed that much because you weren't allowed to work on it over winter break. So, like, I don't know. Again, it could just be one of those things where the way he spoke it wasn't completely correct to how he meant it. But it did worry me just a little bit of like, oh man, I hope you're like not checked out on these regulations already.
So to wrap up, we got about 9 minutes left, a little less. Could be a little more. This is where we're gonna get contentious. Who will have the better first year? Audi or Cadillac? I put a lot of thought into this, and my answer is still the same. So
Now, how do we want to? I guess how we define it determines my answer. Are we going off of points? Like who has the best point total? Like how do you want to measure that?
that is the part that I haven't been able to grasp fully, because there's so many different inputs to all of this whole question. I think the most genuine, like, easy way is points.
If we're going points, Audi. I trust their drivers to pull out results from tricky situations more than I trust Cadillac's drivers to.
My answer, I think, across the board would still be Audi, regardless of how he chose to break it out. Simply because, and this isn't anything against Bottas or Checo. I love Bottas. I'm so happy he's back in Formula One. So happy. And Checo too. Love Checo. I have been waiting for Audi to come into Formula One for 2 years now. And I think they have an advantage. Not necessarily in the vehicle part of the equation, per se. I can't say anything on that. We haven't seen enough yet. But what Audi has is a veteran driver and a very young driver. And that is something Cadillac doesn't have. If you have at least one young driver, they're going to be more easily able to change how they drive, how they do things, how they learn things, how they go about doing things versus veteran drivers. It's going to be a vastly different challenge for a veteran driver. I think Audi's going to have the upper hand over the season because they have Gabby. And he can be a bit more flexible in terms of how he can drive that car because he has less experience under his belt. And then you got Hulk. Granted, Hulk got his first podium last year after, 11 years in Formula One? But Hulk's a fantastic driver. So I I'm going out and saying no matter how you break up what the thing is that determines who's going to have a better season, I'm still picking Audi every time.
How do I want to word this? Cadillac will have the better car by the end of the year. I think. I think their engine's better, and I think they'll be able to build a pretty decent car. The thing I worry about with Cadillac is they have two second fiddles fighting for who gets to be the one to stay.
That could be catastrophic.
Perez has been in that situation once in his career, and he didn't play well with others.
Yep.
Him and Ocon had some serious issues as teammates.
Even him and Max.
But Max was a little bit different because there was no question who was the number one driver in that team. The fact is, at Cadillac, these guys are fighting for one of them gets to keep their career going and the other goes home. At most, you're going to have 2 years of them in this car until Cadillac's youth program that they're setting up brings a new driver in. And you're a good F2 season of any driver away from that changing. You're one good Ferrari Academy driver who they want to give a place to away from Cadillac having to get rid of one of those guys next year. Because let's not forget, Cadillac is a Ferrari engine right now. And Ferrari pays handsomely to put one of their drivers in a car. They would definitely do it in that case. That's how Ollie Behrman is at Haas. Now, Haas and them had a bit of a deal, but that's kind of expiring with the Toyota thing. So that's kind of like limiting stuff. So I could see Ferrari looking for another place to put drivers and that ending up being Cadillac. So I think you're going to have a dynamic eventually throughout the year of Bottas and Perez fighting for who gets to stay in F1. And that could take away from some of what the team is trying to build for this year.
It could. I worry Checo, if not determined the number one driver, will have flashbacks to Red Bull and how he wasn't listened to, which also cannot be good for the team.
It's good having two veteran drivers, but you never know when age is going to catch up to one of them.
It's good to have two veteran drivers, but I think it would have been better to have two veteran drivers, one being the number one driver the whole time and one being the number two driver the whole time.
Well, but that's the problem of picking two drivers up off the street is
both of them have probably been second drivers the entire time.
Yeah. And they've both had success at small teams. Bottas was really good before the Williams shit hit the fan, which got him the Mercedes drive. And Sergio had been really good at Force India, which became Racing Point, which got him the Red Bull drive. So they've had really good midfield drives, but they've also shown when they're put at the front of the field, they are a second fiddle at best. And that was in the prime of their career, which I don't think any of us would argue either of them are at right now. How does that affect the Audi versus them battle? I trust the Audi drivers to get points when they're available, big points when they're available, more than I trust the Cadillac driver to.
Yeah, same.
You know, part of the big haul of points that they got last year was the times when Nico pulled finishes out of his ass, including that podium, that got them big points. They didn't have a great year. They just had a couple really good finishes that made their year look better. And that's something I could see happening in the Cadillac situation, where even if Cadillac overall ends up better closer to the end of the year, I don't know if they have the drivers to be better.
That makes sense.
But I could be wrong. The Audi engine could be dog shit, and Cadillac could walk all over them. I don't.
As I said, Audi across the board. I could be very, 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 very
It's
wrong.
so hard to tell because we haven't actually got to see any of these cars race. And until we see of any set of regulations, this might be the most poignant to be like, until we see them race, we really don't know.
Which is why I'm questioning why you put this on the show topics for today.
Because there wasn't other shit to talk about.
We can talk about NASCAR.
We could have, but
that was a pretty solid race yesterday.
Yeah, it was. My boy Bubba sitting in second in points, so I'm happy. My boy Raja Cruz sitting second in the O'Reilly points, so I'm happy about that.
It didn't look good for any of my drivers. Larson got knocked out midway through the race. Denny didn't finish in the top 10, and Blaney did, but still not close enough to first for me to be happy.
I don't know what's gotten. I don't know what they're feeding Blaney, but it apparently it's got little pieces of stupid in it lately. Because oh my god, both Daytona and Atlanta, I think he forgot his car wasn't a wrecking ball. He's doing his best Hocevar impression.
I was gonna say, who hasn't lost how to drive their car like an asshole? Hocevar.
But at least Hocevar's an asshole who's finishing in the top 5.
He's also an asshole who has no friends on the grid. So because he wrecks everybody.
That's also true, but I'd rather be the asshole with no friends in the top 4 than the guy with a lot of friends who's trying to stay in the top 20.
No, but we're not a NASCAR podcast today. Although I could foresee us branching out from F1. Obviously, we'd keep F1 downcast, but we could also start a NASCAR podcast. That might make my life more complicated, but it could be fun.
Yeah, we watch too many race cars. So many race cars.
That's all I live for. That and nature and hiking and adventure. That's it.
The amount of race cars I've watched in the last 2 weeks, it really reminds me that half my life is cars speeding around a track.
Well, you got to think, in 2 weeks, we've got Australia. Next weekend is IndyCar opener. Next weekend, NASCAR's in Coda. And that's not even including the Cup Series or the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series of NASCAR. Not including the MotoGP, IMSA, WEC. Like,
at least IMSA and WEC were good till March, but that's just around the corner, which is also when the F1 season starts. So it's like
we are 7 days, not even 7 days. We are 5 days away.
I cannot wait for the debut of the new fucking Toyota hypercar. I am like, be good, be good, be good. After like several years of sucking, I need them to be good. I need them to be good. I need them to be good.
Toyota, please be good. That's why we end the show.
Again, thanks everyone for tuning in. I'm Josh.
And I'm Tyler.
We'll see you next week.